Did-it-a-yin-a-nam. You hear that song that's in that intro. Did-it-a-yin-a-nam. It's called the Shalosh Tenuos. It's got 3 stanzas because it's representing the 3 rabbis, the great leaders. You have Rebbe Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, you have the Dovber of Mezrich, the Maggid of Mezrich, and you have Reb Schneer Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe. These are the 3 giants who brought Chassidus into the world. Well, really, it starts with Baal Shem Tov. His successor expands on it. The Baal Shem Tov was a guy who would he was a wanderer, and he'd touch people, and he'd give them insight. He didn't have lengthy discussions. He didn't have deep philosophical talks. He was just going around and touching people, and touching reality, and making it real. His successor, the Maggid of Mezrich, he came and expanded on the ideas. He was like, okay, when he said this, like one word, and he said, go there and do this one thing, this is what it meant. And look at all the worlds that it turned over. He went and expanded it. And then you have the Alter Rebbe, who went and really formalized it as a system of thought. That's why he started what's called the Chabad branch, is because Chabad means thought, Chachma Bina Das. It's very intellectual and systematic. And he created the system of Chabad Chassidus that we are studying today. And that's why we use in the Torah visuals, in that intro, it has that it's that beautiful niggin, the Shalosh Tenuos, just so you see the ode to the Baal Shem Tov, the Mezrich Maggid, and the Alter Rebbe right in the Torah visuals intro. Thank you to our sound engineers who pulled that off. Shkayach. Now, in the last episode, we were talking about God needing to contract his energy and get it down to a point where we could interface with it. And in this episode, in number 2, what we discuss is that God does that through his speech. He uses his words. Why? What is it about speech that takes energy from high to low? What does that mean? So we go through a journey of expression. The soul is this pure energy that is existing in this world, and it wants to interact with the world. So it comes into a body. And now it goes through something that it feels. There's a deep emotion. That's called the midas. That's like in the soul. The soul feels something. So now it goes up. It sends from that midah, from that feeling, it sends up a thought. Let me think about, how's this making me feel? And let me think about how I could convey that to somebody else so that I could achieve this feeling or to stay away from this feeling. And then once you start thinking about it, now you formulate the thoughts clear enough as a word, and I could express it out as a word. So it went through 3 phases. I had a feeling, it became a thought, and then it goes out through speech. My speech is an inkling, a like tip of the iceberg of what that feeling was. I could speak for hours about how something is making me feel, and I'm not quite getting it. It's a lesser version of that feeling. Same thing with thoughts. That feeling, one twinge of a feeling, could set my mind off racing for days, and these thoughts, I could speak for hours trying to just describe one thought. Like all this that I just said in the past 5 minutes, it happened in my thought like that. And it's somewhere in my soul like that. So that's the idea, where speech, it's taking this vast thing and it's making it in a different, more compressed version. This is a word, as it's almost incomparable to the thought that generated the word, and the thought is incomparable to the feeling that gave rise to it. So by God has his infinity, and his infinity wants to have a world. Fine, that's great. That one tiny aspect of him could feel it, and then it's all there. But it's too big. He needs to translate it into the thoughts. It says, Alu b'machshava, that God thought about creating the world. Now he starts getting it a little more concrete. And then when he speaks, so 2 things are happening. A, it went through that diminishment, that it's not as powerful as the feeling. It's not as complex as the thought. It is now a containable, organized word. But another thing that happens is that it comes out of him. I can't transfer a feeling to you. You can't just say, here's a feeling and you get what I'm thinking. You could only transfer it through words. Words bring it out to the other. God wanted there to be an other. So speech it does 2 of these things. Speech lowers the energy and it conveys outside. and there's room for the other. Just something really cool you could see in the video when we have the light bulb go off in the first guy's head who's trying to convey the thought. You see the light bulb and it's nice and bright and there's these cool colors. And then as he speaks and the idea goes into the other guy's mind, because that's the point. I could come out of myself into your mind. So he does get the point, but you see it's missing some of that color. You'll see in the video that it's just two different colors and textures. And that's something, again, the animators, God bless them, they pulled off this really cool idea that we're conveying the ideas, but it's not the full feature of the thought or the full feature of the feeling. So we're talking about speech, that God conveys his reality through speech, and that lowers it down. What is speech made out of? Speech is made out of words. Words are made out of letters. The letters are the code that God uses to create reality. And that's not just like a cute catchphrase. When Hashem says the words Yehi Ar, he says, let there be light. So there's a Yud, there's a Hey, there's a Yud. And these letters are the energetic blocks that when they get formed with these other letters, they form specific shapes. Let's take you over to the gates of Allah and we'll see what we're talking about. I'm going to hold this because we're not so fancy yet. Okay, this is the gates of Allah. First of all, a shout out to the artist, Rachel Yudkoff. She incredible, and you can check her out. We'll send a link in the bios and you'll be able to find her. Incredible stuff. Now, what's going on here, this is from the Sefer Yetzirah. It's one of the, I think it is the oldest Sefer, the book of Kabbalah. It's rumored to even have been written by Avram Avinu. Some say even Adam Harishon. This is an old book that talks about how God creates the world and what are the foundations of the world. Now, you see the letters, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, it goes all the way around. There are 22 letters here. And each letter could connect to another. Let's draw a line from the Aleph to this Chaf. There's a line right there. We draw, and we're there. Each of the letters connects to the other letters. So if you have 22 letters times 21 connections, right, because each of them are connecting to the others, so 22 times 21 ends up being 462, I believe. We'll double check the math afterward. And now when you half that, because we're just talking about going in one direction, when you half that, it ends up being 231. That is the gates of Rallah. Rallah is 231. So we have each letter connecting to each of the other letters with 231 paths that connect them. And now, and Rachel's working on another piece of art where you could see individual words that you could form. But let's say I have an Aleph, and I have a Beis, and I have a Nun, right? I want to make the word Even, right? Stone. There's the Nun. So the way these lines will line up, it'll form this kind of like triangular thing. And that shape of energy that it creates is the building block of what's making the stone. Imagine molecules, right? You have these particular atoms, and then these atoms work together and form a molecule. So you could have 3 carbons and a hydrogen, and when they come together, they form, well, I don't even know what C3H is, but whatever that is, every time molecules come together and they form this new entity, and then many of those could form a new entity. So these letters, the gates of Allah, when they interact with each other, they form this new entity and energy that creates the thing that they're spelling. Mayim, Mem, Yud, Mem, multiple little tiny Mem, Yud, Mems are what is generating water. That's how it works. So it's not this throwaway statement that the 22 letters are the code. When God is speaking these words, his letters are in the reality. The Baal Shem Tov says, L'aylam, let me see if I can find the exact. I can't. Fine. But the Baal Shem Tov says, Yehi dvarcha l'aylam b'shamayim. We'll put up the direct quote, that you have the letters are in the sky. God, your words are always in the sky. What does that mean? It doesn't mean some throwaway comment that God's word is what rules and that's what's... No, it means that your words are actively in the sky right now. When God spoke the words, Yehi Ar, that's not something that happened at the beginning of creation. Day 1, he said, let there be light. Boom. Day 2, he said, let there be water. Boom. No. He speaks currently, every second, that there is light, that there is energy. He is putting those letters in the existence of these lights. That's how it works. It's current. What does he say with these 10, he starts off with all these letters. He has these letters of power. What does he say? He has 10 statements. Let there be light. And then he has, let there be the water should separate. And these are how God creates the world. In the 6 days, he says all the different statements. And what's really cool, in the video, you could see that when we have the letters forming, let's say on Yehi Ar, you see that the letters are forming energy. It's not just random letters forming it. You will see the words Yehi Ar. Those letters will become the energy. And when it says that there should be Nefesh Chaya, right? That there should be animals that roam the earth, you will see the lion in the video, and he becomes letters, but not random letters, Nefesh Chaya. He becomes those letters. So it's really cool. Really good shout out to the animators, like a little afikaiman, like you got to go find little nuggets. So that's the afikaiman pieces that are in this video. You see it by man, Nasa Adam B'Tzalmenu. You'll see the words Nasa Adam B'Tzalmenu. It's incredible. And I just personally love how the man winks. Just makes me very happy. So that's what's going on, that these letters are creating those entities right now. Me, you. Also, it's cool because what happens is those 10 statements are the prime words that make things, right? Yehi Ar, Yud, Hey, Yud, Aleph, Vav, Resh, let there be light. Now, it never says anywhere in the 10 statements, let there be me. It says let there be man, as in mankind. But what about me? What about you? What about this computer? There's no word let there be computer. Where does Mike come from? So what happens is there are what they call the temurais, the different ways of visualizing letters. So let's say we take the word Ar, Aleph, Vav, Resh, but we could swap it around, right? Just by resequencing it, putting Resh, Vav, Aleph, that'll spell a different word and that'll make something else. Now, anytime you do a switch, it's no longer as potent. In God's original format, that's the most potent, and that's the 10 statements of creation. If we switch the words around or switch the letters around, we're still using the original God letters, but we resequence it, and now it's a little less potent. What if we do what they call swapping letters out? There's different ways of swapping. You have what's called atbash, because you'll switch out the first letter for the last letter. That's Aleph Tuf, that's at. And then bash is the second letter for the second and last letter. That's Beis Shin, bash. So at, bash. And then whatever the next one would be, gar, dak. So those switch out. And hopefully we could find some graph that you could see what that looks like. So we switch out the at, bash. And there's other ways of switching letters out. If I'm now switching a letter, so that goes down even another rung of energy. So we have God's original most potent, we have resequencing, making new orders, then we have swapping out letters with the atbash, then we have even lower than that is what's called gematria, is where you have numerical value. Every letter in the Aleph Beis has a number that is associated. Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3. So if I have a word Ar, is Aleph, Vav, Resh, that would be the Aleph is 1, the Vav is 6, the Resh is 200, so that's 207. And now with 207, I'll come up with a completely different word. A Beis and a Hey and a Resh. So that's a completely different word, Bahar, whatever. But now you lower the energy even more. So there's no word altar. That's me. There's no word computer. There's no word mic. But somewhere within the words Nasa Adam B'Tzalmenu, that let us make man in our image, God will take a few letters from there, switch it around, and now we have our race, let's say. And then he'd make a atbash and switch it around, and now we'll have my region. and then he'll make a few more, he'll have my family, and then as it goes through different iterations and lowerings of energy till it becomes very highly specific, and there will be letters that'll create me. There are letters, specific letters that God is speaking that are my reality. There are Kabbalists that say that your name, even if it's not those exact letters, somewhere within your name, parts of the letters within your name is the energy that is you. So that's why it's very powerful when people say that you call somebody by their name. If somebody is passed out and they're unconscious on the floor, and you say, hey, how's it going? Hey, a good way to get their attention, even unconscious, is to say their name. Because there's some deep connection with the soul. There's also psychology, that's what we associate our ego with. It's incredible. But it's also some Kabbalistic real thing that is touching your soul, because that's what you're made out of. That is you. So that's a really cool idea of God speaking the words. That's the code. And then he lowers it by switching it out in these three formats. There's original, and then he swaps the sequence. He can make the atbash, and he can make the gematria, the word, the numerical value. So that is what that is. And just a little cool shout out to the animators again, because we say that by switching these out, God can create all the things. So we say every branch and every tree and every synapse in our mind, you see the symmetry between a tree and a brain. You see that symmetry, and the reason why it's symmetrical is because we're all made out of the same thing. It's not this like random, oh, I look like this and a tree looks like that, and hey, cool, they look the same. No, even from our DNA, the DNA difference between a man and a tree is like, I'll double check it, but it's like 17% different. We're going to have to fact check all my statements. But there's like a 17% difference between a tree and a man. We're made out of the same stuff. That's why we look the same, and our structures are the same. You could zoom into a person's eye and it looks like a galaxy. The closer you go into an atom, the smaller you go, the larger it looks. Galaxies and universes look like microscopic atoms because we're all made out of the same thing. Our DNA is the same because we're all coming from the same spiritual place. We have the same 22 letters that God is speaking us. So that's what's going on. It's really, really cool stuff. Also, there's a pasuk that says, Ki Adam Eitz Hasada, that man is like the tree, whatever. It's all one thing. So God, we say, is not just speaking those words once upon a time. 6 days of creation, God speaks the words, and then it's game over. He said it, now he can walk away and let the world be. It's not like that. And we use the watchmaker as the example. We say that there's a watch that you could build it, and you wind it, and you walk away, and it's fine. We use the watch. Actually, it's very interesting. The watchmaker is a specific argument that's used in philosophy, and it's actually been used by Isaac Newton and Rene Descartes. They've used the watchmaker's example to prove God's existence. They say, look how complicated a watch is. Could a watch have just happened here? No. Since it's so smart of a system, it shows there must be a watchmaker. And therefore, they're saying that the world is so complex, there must be a God. The problem is we're using this to say that they didn't go far enough. Yes, the fact that the world is so complex proves, intelligent design proves that there's a God. Great. And this is Isaac Newton and Rene Descartes. Thank you. But you didn't go far enough. You made it compared to a watch that a watchmaker sets it and he walks away. And we're saying, no, it's even more than that. He's currently doing it now. He's energizing it now. He's putting the pieces together now. He's winding it now. Not only that, he's making the pieces now. He's making the watchmaker now. L'chaim l'vracha. So that's what's going on. And I just really like that we use that, because it's interesting how these guys who were devout Christians, they were trying to prove God, and we're saying that they didn't go far enough. Also interesting, there is a Hasidic Maisa. There's a tale from the Hasidic masters that a similar, I forget who it's said about, but he goes to meet somebody who says, hey, you believe in God, and he's trying to say that, you guys are all silly for believing in God. The guy walks out of the room. The Chassid or the Rebbe, he gets up and he quickly draws a beautiful painting, and then he knocks over the ink jar. The guy walks back into the room and he says, what's this? Beautiful picture, but you made a mess. He's like, I didn't do it. The wind blew, it knocked over, and the way the rivulets of ink fell around, it made this wonderful painting. He's like, come on, it doesn't work like that. It's so beautiful. It must be designed by someone. He's like, aha, look outside at a tree. Look at the brilliance of how it all interacts. Look at a mountain. Look at a sunrise. You're going to tell me that this picture is impossible to happen accidentally, but this world is an accident? Come on. So similar idea with the watchmaker. Now, that's the quote that we had earlier about the Baal Shem Tov, that it is currently happening, that your words stay in the sky. Very cool. Now, the last concept that we show to illustrate that is with the floating ball toy. We have the guy over there and he's blowing, and I really enjoy that example because you see the constant effort it takes to keep reality in existence. I just want to undermine that a little bit, because the only thing that was actually blown was our soul. Because they say that whatever is, when you blow, you blow from your depth, like you take a deep breath, and it takes like effort. I could speak, and I don't really feel the air coming out of my mouth too much, but when I blow with power, and it comes from inside of me. So all of creation was spoken, which is this lighter version of breath. But then a blow comes from deep, and you use strength, and our souls come from there. And it's because they say that God blows us from his inside, that you have to take a deep breath, and God dug deep, whatever that means, lahavdil. Whenever we say anything that sounds anthropomorphic about God, that he has breath, that he digs deep, we have to understand that these are all concepts. It's not actually breath, it's not actually, but we're just conceptually saying that we come from a deeper place. So I just want to dispel that idea that reality is being blown. Really, reality is being spoken. So just to dispel that right there. But the point that it's illustrating, that it's constant and it takes consistent energy. And as soon as you stop, it falls. And one final detail that we threw in there, it's not just that if God were to stop for a second, reality would stop. We would all just, I wouldn't even want to say this word, but all of humanity would just die, all the animals would die, and everything would just stop, right? So you'd have a world, and God stops speaking, so everything just stops. No, because he's not just your life force. He is also your physical matter. If he would stop, you wouldn't exist ever, because God's also beyond time. If he stops talking, you never existed. Creation never happened. You leave no trace. You are gone. You never were. So that's just a fascinating idea, that God is constantly generating reality. He does it through his speech. And we said two features of that, because it comes outside of him and it lowers the energy. All these great things. That is some nuggets from episode 2. Hope you enjoyed. And please tune in. Again, there's more episodes, exciting stuff coming. Share it with your friends. Exciting. Auf Wiedersehen.